This is Agent Mode AI. I'm Abby. Anthropic shipped Claude for Chrome on the 26th of August 2025 to 1,000 Max Plan subscribers at $100 to $200 per month. The same announcement window included a published security disclosure: 23.6% prompt injection success rate pre-mitigation, 11.2% post-mitigation, and 0% on URL injection variants after subsequent patches. Today, we're walking AM009. The headline is not the 11.2% rate. The headline is the disclosure cadence and what it tells procurement about the browser-resident agentic AI class.
I'm Avery. What do the three numbers actually measure?
Red team measurements against a defined attack corpus. The pre-mitigation 23.6% figure is the success rate of the corpus against an instance of Claude for Chrome with the safeguards disabled. The post-mitigation 11.2% is the same corpus against the launch configuration safeguards. The 0% on URL injection variants reflects a subsequent patch round that closed a specific variant class within the corpus. Three properties of the methodology bound the procurement read. The corpus is finite and disclosed. The rates apply to that corpus and to the variants it tested. The rates are red team measurements under controlled conditions, not production incident statistics. And the 0% figure is post-patch and corpus specific. The patch closes the URL injection variants tested. It does not close URL injection as an attack class for arbitrary future variants.
What should a deploying enterprise read the 11.2%?
As a useful upper bound on platform layer exposure for the disclosed attack corpus, a lower bound on the deployment layer compensating control work the operator should plan for, and a snapshot rather than a steady state. The class of risk outside the corpus is unbounded by the 11.2%, and the operator's primary planning input. A laboratory rate of 11.2% does not translate directly to a production incident rate at the deploying enterprise. The production rate depends on the deployment's exposure profile, which sites the agent operates against, which content classes it processes, how aggressively the operator's compensating controls filter inputs.
Then why is the rate not the headline?
Because the disclosure cadence is the procurement signal. AM007 names two cohorts on cross-agent class disclosures. Cohort A engages with researcher disclosure, ships mitigations, and publishes the resulting numbers, including the residual rate. Cohort B classifies the disclosed behavior as intended functionality and does not patch. Anthropic's Claude for Chrome launch is the marquee execution of the Cohort A pattern. The vendor disclosed pre-mitigation rates, post-mitigation rates, and subsequent patch deltas in the same announcement window as the product launch. The disclosure itself is procurement evidence that the vendor's response posture for future variants will likely follow the same pattern. The absence of a comparable disclosure from a competitor shipping parallel browser-resident agent is a procurement signal in the opposite direction.
The Brave Software Comet research.
Brave Software published parallel class research on Comet, a different browser AI product, in August 2025. The testing found similar exposure to the prompt injection class, confirming the structural failure mode is generic to browser-resident agents rather than Anthropic-specific. The deploying enterprise reading the 11.2% Anthropic figure should not infer that competitors will land at the same rate. The rate is a function of the specific product's mitigation work and the variants tested. The relevant comparison across vendors is the published disclosure posture, not the rate.
The operationally important read.
A vendor's product can have a higher residual rate than Anthropic's 11.2% and still be in cohort A on the disclosure axis if the rate is published transparently. A different vendor's product can have an unmeasured residual rate with no public disclosure and be in cohort B on the disclosure axis, even if the underlying rate were lower. Procurement should weight cohort A disclosure with disclosed rate above cohort B disclosure, absence, or classification as feature, regardless of the specific rate number.
The browser resident class as a whole.
The Agent Flare research from Zinity Labs at Black Hat USA 2025, the Echo Leak Common Vulnerability Identifier 2025-32711 disclosed in August 2025, and the Brave Comet research together describe the structural failure mode at the product class. Browser-resident agentic productivity gains the marketing material attributes to the browser-resident class are real for the use cases where the agent operates against trusted internal content. Internet pages, internal documents, authenticated software as a service surfaces under operator control. Second, the same productivity case does not extend on the same evidence to use cases where the agent operates against attacker-influenceable content. Public web pages, untrusted email attachments, third-party document uploads from outside the operator's control. Third, the procurement decision is not whether to deploy browser-resident agents. It is which content classes the deployment is approved to operate against and which compensating controls run at the deployment layer.
5 questions for the Chief Information Officer and Chief Information Security Officer.
Question 1. Has the vendor published a security disclosure with red team rates pre- and post-mitigation on a defined attack corpus for the browser-resident product? Anthropic's 23.6, 11.2, 0 pattern is the current reference shape. A vendor that has not published a comparable disclosure is not in Cohort A on this product class, regardless of corporate-level disclosure posture on other products.
Question 2.
What is the variant class coverage of the published corpus, and how does the vendor describe the variants outside the corpus? The corpus describes what the rate covers. The discussion of out-of-corpus variants describes what the rate does not cover. A vendor that publishes the rate without naming the corpus is publishing a marketing number rather than a procurement input.
Question 3.
What is the patch cadence the vendor commits to for newly disclosed browser-resident variants, in days from researcher notification to deployed fix, with named accountability? Anthropic's URL injection to 0% patch round demonstrates the cadence is non-zero. The procurement deck question is whether that cadence is committed for future variants or whether the launch window patches were one time.
Question 4.
Does the deployment support per tenant or per user disable of the most exposed agent capabilities? Autonomous mode, document upload processing, cross-tab context retention, image-embedded text processing. The disable lever at the operator's control is the load-bearing compensating control when an emerging variant lands faster than the patch cadence accommodates. Per tenant disable is the minimum useful granularity. Per user and per workflow is the operationally healthy target. What is the audit log surface for the operator's security operations center? Every page the agent visits, every form it fills, every external URL it fetches, every embedded image it processes, with timestamps and outcome. The deploying enterprise's incident response runbook depends on the surface existing at the granularity the security operations center needs, not at the granularity the vendor chooses to expose. Timon Willison framed the 11.2% rate on the 25th of August 2025 as a meaningful residual for any deploying enterprise that does not pair the platform layer mitigation with deployment layer practice. Question 5 is the deployment layer instrumentation.
Final word.
A vendor that cannot answer all 5 in writing for the browser-resident product is not Cohort A on this product class, regardless of marketing posture. A vendor that can is in Cohort A. The published rate becomes the operator's deployment layer planning input rather than the procurement disqualifier. And the MTTD for Agents framework operationalizes the detection window inside the Security Operations Center against the audit log surface in Question 5. The Anthropic announcement, the Brave Comet research, the Agent Flare disclosure, the Echo Leak Common Vulnerability Identifier, and the Wilson commentary are linked at agentmode.com/holding/claim equals AM009. AM009 is holding. The next review is on the 6th of July 2026. Cadence is 60 days, shorter than typical because Claude for Chrome is an active research preview and the product is changing.
Holding up. See you next Sunday.